Pleased to be joined at this time by Jesse Braswell, strength conditioning coach at Forsyth High School in Georgia. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure. I'm excited to come on and provide some good stuff in the strength and conditioning world.
Awesome, man. We're excited to have you. This is the lifeline of a lot of programs, and it used to be no programs, and then it was football, and now it's kind of everything. Everybody's embraced that this is really where it's at. It's not. I love talking about the scheme of the sports and offense, defense, and some of the things you do, but the truth is, this is the number one thing. And so excited to talk to you, Coach, and see what you got to say. So before we get started, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, kind of where you got your start, how you got to where you are today, and kind of what kind of school you're at. So as they're listening to this, they can kind of visualize what you're working with and put it in context to their school.
Yeah, so didn't really have any idea that I wanted to be a teacher or a coach. Grew up around football, baseball, track. What my mom was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, was around coaches my whole life. Didn't think I wanted to do that. Had some other plans, but my God and my high school coach kind of, they put some different plans. Steve Price, he's the head coach down at North Florida Christian, Tallahassee. He called me up one day. I was working in a small town in North Florida and said, "Hey man, why don't you, while you're still in school, why don't you just try to help us out?" And got started and fell in love, man. Fell in love with kids and what I had to offer to them and changing their lives and seeing smiles on their face when things were good and being there for them, for a shoulder to cry on. It's just, that's why I do what I do. So started at a small school in Thomasville, Georgia with Shane Boggs, was the defensive line coach when I was 19 years old. Was still in school down in Tallahassee. Was just a lay coach, helped out there. The next year I took a linebacker job at North Florida Christian in Tallahassee, Florida. Great tradition. Ernie Sims graduated there. They've won 8 state championships since 1999 or 1998. Great tradition. Robert Kraft, who's my head coach now, was the head coach. Gave me an awesome opportunity, man, as a young coach to come in. Gave me a ton of responsibility. I'll forever be indebted to them. Robert ended up taking a job up here at North Forsyth. And so Steve took the head coaching job and at the young age of 22 offered me the defensive coordinator job and the strength job. I was overwhelmed. I was excited, but I was overwhelmed. I had a lot going on. Was entering my master's program at the time, but was super excited to get that opportunity. So fast forward, we with great coaching, we had the opportunity to win the state championship 2 years ago in Florida in Class 2A with some great players. And then I knew that starting a family, I wanted to get into Georgia and with their, just get into the public school system. Coach Kraft offered me the opportunity up here at North Forsyth to take over the strength program. And the athletic director, Scott Tilden, also offered me the opportunity to kind of oversee all sports. And so I couldn't resist. I'm 5.5 hours away from home. Forsyth County's about 45 minutes north of Atlanta. I could be misspeaking here, but I think we have 6 7A schools within the county. All of us are in the same region, along with a couple of private schools and a couple of smaller schools. So Forsyth County's big. It's growing. We got well over 2,500 students in our school. And that goes for all the other, city schools. So, Forsyth County's awesome, man. And then I get the opportunity to coach, be over the mostly baseball, and then girls softball and girls basketball and girls volleyball. We're trying to incorporate other sports, but man, it's been a whirlwind since I got here last June. So, but Forsyth County is a great place to work. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, they speak highly of you, Coach. I heard some good things about you. So looking forward to hearing what you got to say. So what we're going to talk about today is your squat progression and then kind of transition to the second part, talking a little bit about nutrition. So kind of take it away, and I'm just gonna sit back and listen, and I'll interject if I see something, but we'll ask questions at the end or anything like that. But look forward to hearing from you, Coach.
Good deal. All right. So, real quick before we get into squat progression, just kind of talk about philosophy. I believe, you can have whatever programming system you want. You can be the best programmer. You can know the most about, strength and conditioning. I really didn't have any idea I was going to get into this field whenever I took the defense coordinator job 5 years ago. I thought that I would move on quickly up and become a DC at a public school and then eventually a head coach. And I'm still still have those dreams and aspirations, but man, did I fall in love with the weight room. It's the lifeblood of any program.
Absolutely.
And it's just really, really important. You can see the changes of the kids' attitude and their, just their mental focus within the weight room, how it goes on over into the practice field. And, that's something that we really changed at North Forsyth was just, the focus that goes into a weight room. And so I believe kids are above everything else, man. Whatever you think, even about my progression talk, I hope you know about me, man, that I hold my kids first. Right here on the right, it's a picture of our Halloween lift. I'm big into having some fun in the weight room. So I let our kids have dress up Halloween. We got some crazy ones, and we got some, some that don't really want to participate, but man, they all buy in. That's what they love, is to have fun. So the next thing is I believe for me, certainly, I'm not CS certified or nothing like that. I've been around the weight room and involved in the weight room since I was at a young age. I played NAIA ball, so I was around at the college, and got a lot of buddies who are CSCS and this and that. But I know what it takes, but I also know that there's a lot of smart people out there that know a whole lot more about it than me. So I believe I got, for me, I got to continue to learn and to evolve in my philosophy. The next bullet point, culture. That word is thrown around like a rag doll. But I do believe that with every program, the culture starts right in that room. Mm-hmm. Whether it be accountability or, just toughness, the competition. That's one thing that I don't involve in this slide, but I believe a great deal is our teams, whether it be baseball, football, whatever, we're going to compete at some point in the weight room. We're going to blow the whistle, stop everything, and somebody's going to compete. We may run a 5-10 split. We may do a grip exercise. We may do who can hold a hang and pull up the longest. We're going to do something to compete. Then the next thing, self-analyze. We always talk to our kids about getting better, but we have to have the same goals for ourselves. And for me, in my philosophy, I got to have the same goals. Okay, so just some of those goals real quick, kind of going on into that. Every semester, really, I should probably do it a little more, but I'm also a coach for the football team, and I also got a lot of programs. So I try to do it. I do it every semester, but I try to do it a little more if I can. Especially after the season, I'll go back and just ask myself some of these questions. And I always want hard data to back it up for the most part. Did I prepare us to be successful, which is number 9? It's hard to have that data, but there is some things in here that I can have hard evidence to back that up, and so I'll ask myself, hey, did I increase performance, with a smart, well planned out program? Did I increase or maintain a level of dynamic flexibility? I think that's something that gets put on the back burner by a lot of coaches that shouldn't. We're going to do some stuff and that involves flexibility every day. And you got to have, we'll talk a little more about it later. Did I increase functional strength and power? Just some things that I think so important. We want our kids, we want them to be accountable. And I think it's super important for us to be accountable as well as strength coaches. All right. So jumping right into the progression of the, squat, first off, I don't think that I'm perfect in what I do or how I go about it. I think that I have some, going back to my first slide, I think I got some, room to evolve and to change and to get better. But I really think that, am I correct on all this? I think that I've learned from a lot of really, really smart people. So the first thing we're going to do, our select teams, which is our middle school teams, are going to come in really January before their 9th grade year and start working out with us before school. So that'll be my first opportunity to see them. This January is my first opportunity to see our upcoming 9th graders. And so first day, first off, I'm going to make it as fun as I can. I want those kids, just as kind of off topic, not too much, but I want those kids to want to come back. I want them to go home and say, man, Mom, Dad, I had a blast at that weight room. How do I do that? I want to do it all in a way that, man, we're getting better. That's the most important thing. But, as a 8th grader, or am I going to get them in there and squat 300 pounds? Probably not. Am I going to get them to move the bar as fast as they're ever going to move it? Probably not. But there's some things in there that I can, make them want to come back. And that's the most important part. So back on topic of the first progression, first day, first week, really, we're going to figure out how our kids been, and, what they're doing, what areas need work the most. We're going to go through a format and divide those kids up and, work on different things. I don't spend a ton of time on body weight squats because I'm going to skip right ahead to progression 2. But the first week, really, that I have a kid, I'm going to see how well they've been. Okay, so moving right on, one of my favorite, I wouldn't say my favorite. I'm going to say that a whole ton, but I do love some squat stuff. But, I love goblet squats. My kids are going to do them all the time. My seniors are going to do them. My 6th graders that I train are going to do them. It's a norm within our program. It provides a safe front load. Most experienced kids in the program, like I said, are still going to do it. Some mistakes that I look for, obviously not going parallel, not being able to bend. As you can see right here, sometimes kids will bend over, the torso will move forward. Whenever I see that, I'm going to – kid on the right, which on the last – he's a baseball kid at North. We'll see in the last slide him eventually evolving into our progression 5, which is back squat, which was a big progression for him. But he's about 6'6", long legs, long torso. So we just provided him, it's nothing more than a box squat. But within our room, we don't have the pads and all that. But, you got to figure out a way. And so we just stack some bumpers up, and that's how we make the box squat. So that he had that torso bend. That's the number one thing I see is just the bend over. And then coming up on your toes is another thing that I see a lot. That's one thing that you got to see as a coach and be able to fix. A lot of times that comes from ankle flexibility and mobility, and we'll talk a little bit about how to fix that here in the next couple slides. All right, so once I get through goblet squats, I'm going to spend a ton of time on goblet squat. Whenever I say a ton, it all depends on the group that you have. It's hard to put a time on it. I see coaches a lot, which I'm sure their programs are great, say, hey, we're going to go 4 weeks doing goblet squat, or we're going to go 2 weeks of body weight, 2 weeks of goblet, and then we're going to move on. I don't do that. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm going to go on my eyes. I'm going to trust my eyes in the room. And, whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But if a kid is really, he's got what it takes to do the goblet squats, we'll move on to progression 3, which we'll talk to here in a minute. But backing up a little bit, just talking about if a kid is struggling with goblet squats, there's got to be a reason, right? And so it could be within his hips, could be within his ankles. So my first deal, I love hip mobility stuff. I love ankle mobility stuff. When I first started in this profession, I did it probably just to do it because I knew it was important. I didn't know why it was important. So I encourage any strength coach, don't just do it to do it. Have a purpose, just like anything else. You're not going to do a drill in football just to, some people may, but you shouldn't just do a drill just for the sake of doing it. You should have a reason behind doing it. And so also be creative with your huddle work. I see coaches on Twitter. One that just sticks out, John Garris down in Florida. His dad actually works with me. He's our lacrosse coach, but he had kids with PVC pipes, and they would change the, where it is, and this kid had to go up and over and around. He was just being creative, man. I thought it was awesome. Not doing the same thing. I'll get in that lull of doing the same thing. I tried to find a picture of us doing, or a video of us doing hurdle work, and I didn't. But just some examples, your normal, just stepping over, stepping under, that kind of hurdle work, anything to get the hips in a position that they're not normally in. Okay. And so, I just encourage strength coaches, be creative. Don't fall into a lull of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And so, I'm going to skip ankle mobility real quick, but sometimes, man, I believe that showing the kid just the right way to do it. I think that's a little underrated in our profession. Sometimes they just need to see it. I'm not a very good golfer. I go golfing, but sometimes just to see somebody else swing and then see myself how I'm doing it, I may could fix or tweak a couple things. Okay, so I think that it don't always work. A matter of fact, it's probably it don't work a whole lot, but I think sometimes it's a good thing to do. Okay, and so now we'll skip right back up to ankle mobility. Something I've really started doing recently. Haven't done it a whole lot, but fell in love with it really this year in August. It takes some time to program it and put it into what you're doing, and I think we all have a deal where we kind of fall into doing the same thing over and over and over again. So you have to find a way to incorporate it. So these are just a few examples. I really like the one on the right over here. We just use a bumper plate for us and with no weight. This kid has some weight on, which is great. But all he's going to do is basically the same thing. I like to raise my kids' heels, okay? And my instruction to them is don't worry about where your back foot really is, okay? We just want to make sure that our heels and our toes stay on the weight, okay? And we're just going to rock forward and then rock back, okay? You can do the same thing up against a wall. There's a ton of great instruction out there on how to do this. I think that is super important. And you'll see kids that struggle with ankle mobility, and there's different ways. In the next couple of slides, I'll show you some ways that while we're working on ankle mobility, what we do in the weight room to really help them. That way they can still squat. And so if you don't have this incorporated into your room, I encourage you to find a way. Maybe you give the kids homework on doing this, which is tough because are they really going to do it? But find a way to incorporate this into your room.
That's good stuff, Coach. That was good. That's good. I couldn't agree more. I've been around this a long time. If you hadn't heard much yet, you need to rewind and listen to that last 30 seconds or a minute again. That was good.
Yeah. I can't say that I've done it forever. I really have fell in love with it within the last year, along with this progression right here, the landmine squat. Something that has quickly become one of my favorites. I told you back on progression 2 that I'm going to say every one of these is my favorites, but really something that I've found has really helped my younger kids evolve, get to the next step. And so I used to only have a 4-step progression. This wasn't a part of it. Now I have a 5-step progression with this being a part of it. So I think it's the great equalizer for me. It makes a kid sit back in a squat. It's amazing how it works. And, it forces the athlete into a good squat. And, older kids in my program, we're going to do some different things with the landmine. We'll do some extension stuff. And, they know that some days we're just going to do landmine squat. A lot of things to look for. My kids are going to cue on the same thing. We're going to go feet shoulder width, slightly outside shoulder width apart, toes slightly angled outward, and we're going to replace our hips, our knees with our hips. And so that's a cue that I give from the very first deal, and I'll say it a million times. I don't know if that's what everybody does, but that's what I do. And so that's something just the kids always cue on. They always have that in their head. And so the feet too close on the landmine just isn't going to work. It's not going to work on a lot of squats. I've coached very few kids And it's a great squat, but that can have their feet close together and perform the proper squat. And so, especially in the landmine, a kid's going to have his feet too close. Everybody wants to do too much weight on the landmine, in my opinion. And then holding the bar away from your chest. You can see this guy right here. He's got it right up against his chest. And so there should be a slight tilt to the body. Okay, it shouldn't be straight up and down because that's going to knock you over when you get back. So you need a slight tilt of the body, making sure that they don't get up on their toes, though. Make sure their heels stay on the ground. So this next kid that come to me, he came to me day one, couldn't bend very well. His dad's a part of our ROTC program. Really struggled, bending. He failed out the first two progressions, really. And so I was struggling. Everybody else in the class was really moving ahead. I was struggling on what to do with him. And so I let him try out landmine squats. And for some reason, he was just really good at it. So one thing we did with him is a lot of people use blocks, okay, but we just slide. We don't have that, at our school. And so we just slide tens underneath his feet. That really helps him with ankle mobility. His ankles are stiff as a 2x4. So, sliding them tens underneath, it really, really helps him. And so that's what we do with him. Coach, this was a video, but I think during this slide, I don't know if I'm going to be
You may have to go up where it says swap share screen with video. I don't know.
It's all right. So we're gonna miss out on some good video, but
hit play down there. Hit play down there at the. Can you see that? Right there. Can you hit play?
Right here.
Yeah, somewhere down there. Sometimes you not seeing a screen down there at the bottom. Maybe not.
No, I'm
Sometimes
not.
there's some kind of screen will come up where it'll have the little things where you can hit play.
Yeah, I don't see it in this. But anyway, just I thought that the landmine really done a great deal for him. Also, I can't say enough about increasing the heel level. We have to do it with some of our older kids. They'll get out of rhythm, and just like anything else, I don't know to compare the squat to like a basketball shooter. He goes hot and cold, but I've seen some kids, man, that are great squatters come in the room and just have a bad day, and so that's my first go-to is ankle mobility. The first thing they do is squat high, and so I'm going to increase those heel levels, and for some reason it makes them more comfortable and able to squat lower. So I fell in love with this, guys. I think that if you don't incorporate it into your room, first I would encourage you to try it if you lift at all. And you'll feel the way that it changes and attacks a couple different other muscles and forces your hips down. So I encourage you to try it and then try to incorporate it into your room. All right. Definitely my favorite lift. I told you I was going to say that every progression. But front squat, without a doubt, if I got to take one thing into a room and do it any day without able to do anything else, I'm going to front squat. The kids love it. We have front squat Fridays. When you come in our room on Fridays, whether it's the football team or the baseball team, you're going to hear front squat Friday, and our kids are going to be fired up about it. We front squat on game day. They love it, it really is a great lift. Problems, it exposes some things, for other things, it exposes. My biggest deal with it is it really helps mobility issues, throughout the triceps, for the rack clean. That's my biggest deal. I love it for that. It exposes some obviously some poor strength in the glutes and the quads. It exposes some core problems. This is one thing that, I really, really, really love. Obviously if you're not doing it within your room, I encourage you. You'll fall in love with it just like I did. I've always front squatted in my room. It's always been a staple of my room. We would go from body weight to goblet to front to back. But again, I could stop right here and not ever go to back squat. Am I going to do that? Absolutely not. Before any coaches say, "Oh, you're not going to back squat." No, we're going to back squat. But for me, in my room, if I had to stop right here, I could make it work. And just because I believe it's that good of a lift. Again, I think the kids like it a lot more. I think it protects the muscles and the ligaments in the body a lot better. Now, I just think that for the most part, this is probably the best of the 5 progressions. On the right here, this is one of my kids working out at home during this quarantine. He's a brute, but doing a really, really good job with the front squat. You can see his cue, kind of how we talked about it earlier. All my kids, you're really going to see them with the same stance, and I think that's important. You see where his feet are, and you see you can put a glass cup right there, okay, and it's not gonna tilt over. We believe in getting parallel, and engaging the glutes and the hamstring. So really, really big deal there. I had some cool videos, Coach. I
don't know why they're not playing.
I don't either, but this was some stuff that we had within the room. That was a really, really good lift throughout our front squat. We're going to front squat with chains, as you see here. We're going to do everything we do with the back squat. Usually my 100% of my back squat is about, I judge it off of 75% or 73% of that's the max of. So if you're, whatever your back squat is, 73% of that is your max front squat. That's what I based it off of. I got that from a couple college coaches. So, we're going during our heavy, when we're doing 1 rep maxes or whatever, we're going to do that with front squat too, and so because my kids, they love it just as much as I do. And they see the passion I have for it, just like, and so they kind of evolve, and they love it just as much as I do. And so we're going to do everything with front squat that we do other places. I have some kids that just got to be able to back squat. Okay. And so that's the reason is because I'm going to keep them front squatting until I truly believe that they can move on. Okay. And so I can't emphasize that enough. I think you can go from, not that you should mess it up, but I think you can mess up going from body weight to goblet, and you'll be fine. I really think you can go from goblet to landmine. You're going to be fine. You can, with the right weight, you can go from landmine, to front squat and be fine. The next jump is the big one, and I can't stress it enough. I was 22 years old and I had 8th graders in there that didn't know what the heck they were doing back squatting and really messed it up. And so I've been there and done that. I can't say that I'm perfect. I'm certainly not, but I've learned over the years that next jump is a big one. Okay. And so it's really, really important that your athletes, take care of their front squat and understand why, and understand the movements, and understand, hip, ankle mobility, and power, raw power. And so the next squat obviously is the back squat, the final progression. This is the kid from the box squat that was really struggling. The 6'6" kid. You can see there, I couldn't quite get it to where he was parallel, but he when I first got him, man, he couldn't bend a half of that. So it took him until I got him August 1, and so it took him until really probably November before we back squatted. Okay, and so took him a long, long time. We did a lot of goblet box. We did a lot of front squats. We did a lot of landmine stuff before he was able to do this right here. And I was super proud of him for being able to do this. And I always am going to, hoop and hooray whenever my kids are able to do a good back squat, because it takes a long time to get to that point. Obviously, I probably a bunch of coaches on here are big back squat guys. I'm a big back squat guy. I don't got to tell you what it does. Obviously power, strength, explosiveness. Before I move on, I just tell you a little bit about who I've evolved into in the weight room. I don't go for numbers anymore. When I was a young strength coach, 5 years ago, I wanted the biggest number in the room for my kids. Now we stop them at a number, and they do max reps of that number. And so, for us, it's in the fall it's 365, and then in the spring it's 405, and we'll get a max reps off of those, and that's what we'll base that number off of. But I really want my kids to move the bar, because that's what translates onto the field. And so I can't, there's a ton of things out there that can back that up. I can just tell you right now, Nick Saban just hired Matt Ray from Indiana. And you should go. I challenge some strength coaches to go look up some of his stuff and what he's doing. And I'm just telling you, Nick Saban's not hiring no chump. Okay. And so, he's all about.
I knew I liked you, Coach. That was a good comment there.
Yeah.
You kind of throwing the suck up to the host. That's my alma mater.
Is it really?
Most people don't like that because, we win so much. But, it's okay. I can accept the hate. But you are right. I just had to throw a little humor in there. But you're right. The guy from Indiana they brought in big time, innovative, new age, and that's how they've stayed. That one of the reasons Alabama stayed so successful, probably the number one reason, is in the strength program.
Oh, there's no doubt, and I can't emphasize that enough. And I'm not an Alabama guy, Coach, but my daddy taught me one thing, and that's give credit where credit's due. And
that's
so,
right.
I'm an FSU guy, Coach. Y'all beat us up a couple years ago, but we're back on the rise.
Probably owed them from those 80s and 90s times where they were a little better than us.
No doubt. So I challenge any strength coach, man, go look him up. I read a ton of his stuff. I love what he's doing. I don't agree with everything that he's doing, but that's probably because I'm a little hard-headed. But I agree with most of it, and I don't have to agree with all of it. That's why he's the strength and conditioning coach at Alabama. I probably should. And so, but he's got some great stuff. A lot of coaches are doing that. A lot of coaches are, it's kind of evolved from chasing numbers to now you really, what's more important, chasing numbers or chasing, wins on the football field. And in my opinion, and my kids know this, every time we walk into that room, only reason we're there is to win. That's the only reason. We're not there to chase a number. We're not there to, that's the only. We're there to compete and to win on Friday nights. And I think that's the most important thing. Just to tell you a little bit about how I track numbers. We're going to track. I believe in tracking. We're going to track the bench. The kids love it. I could just work out bench probably and couple, once or twice a week and be done with it because I do think it translates, but it's not as big a deal as anything, squatting or power clean. We're going to track power clean. We're going to track squat. But I think some numbers that I encourage you, we're going to track pull-ups and we're going to track the vertical, okay? And here's why. If a kid, we're going to track weight, how much a kid weighs. So during the fall, we're going to weigh every day. During the spring, we'll weigh say again, Coach?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to weigh probably once a month, and I'm just going to track that, okay? And so here's my thought process behind it. So if a kid weighs 200 pounds and his vertical's 30 inches and he can do 20 pull-ups, okay? And then, he gets to 205, but then his vertical goes down to 27 inches, and his pull-ups go down to 18, what does that do us any good? He's gotten less explosive. And so I'll tell you this, I love when a kid goes up to 210 and then his vertical stays the same or maybe increases just a little bit, and then his pull-ups do the same thing because now that kid is heavier and just as explosive or more explosive. And so that's where I kind of I put my hat on with those. I really, really I incorporate that big time. Our coaches know those numbers. And we're going to ask why when things don't look right, okay? Because that's what our program's built around is explosive athletes. And so when something's not right, we're going to ask the why on why that isn't right. And a lot of times it has to do. This was an awesome back squat with a kid from a quarantine, but my dang.
Hit the play button right there in the middle of it.
Yeah, I think that just plays the slide and moves it.
It won't play the next one, huh?
Yeah. So. So this was a cool video of a kid at quarantine at home, man. Our kids are doing a great job of that. But usually going back to the explosive and my athletes, usually whenever things aren't going right, this is the field that it falls into, this or sleep. Okay. And so my kids hear me talk about nutrition every single day and rest every single day. One thing I tell them is I don't know the exact number, and there's some Twitter guys out there that'll attack me for this, but probably the going into the weight room and getting your grind on is probably 30 or 40% of it, and the other 60 to 70% of it is rest and nutrition. And so, if you're not eating and sleeping right and you're going in there and busting your tail, you're only getting 30% of what you could get, And so my kids hear that out of me. We talk about it before our workout and after our workout every day. And so I tell them the car analogy. Every one of them could tell you this story, and I do it on purpose. They get tired of me hearing it. But, Coach, if me and you went to New York City and we took my F-150, before we leave, we're going to have to stop by the gas station. We're going to have to fill it up. Okay. And when we travel up there and we get there, before we come back, guess what we're going to have to do, Coach? We're going to have to fill it up again. And so that is straight before you go in the weight room, before you make that, before you go in there, you're going to have to fill it up, and that don't mean you got to per se fill up on food, but you got to put something in it. Okay. Your body's relying on that gas. And so, super important that they do. And then right after, we're fortunate enough at North Forsyth, we weren't at North Florida Christian to provide our athletes with food. And right here is a couple of pictures, okay, of what we do at North. We have the Gatorade thing going. We have some awesome parents who are involved, who make peanut butter and jellies. And we also buy about 400 milks a week. Chocolate milks are 23 cents. You can see down here. That's what we get them for. And so your county may be a little different, but we incorporate that into our booster budget. Our head coach and our booster club are awesome. They come to me. If I wanted to be involved in the booster club meeting, they'll let me. They want that to be a big deal, and it is. We spend a ton of money for our kids to eat right, and they think it's important. I think it's important. They were doing it a little bit before I got here, but we've really probably ramped it up a little bit. We're going to give our kids something solid and something to drink every day after our lift. For instance, right here, this is graham crackers with peanut butter in between. They could either, a lot of times I'll give them the choice of you can get a protein shake or chocolate milk, graham crackers, protein bar, or a chewy bar. That's maybe one day's example. Right over here, I'll give them an example. Get one fruit, one peanut butter, one milk. And so we're fortunate enough to do that. I know that everybody's not, but I do think that everybody can make an effort to do something, whether it's only giving it to them once a week or, once every 2 weeks. I think you got to try to do something for your kids, and they buy into it. As much as I talk about it, it would not be very smart of me to not put a big emphasis, and not be very smart of our booster club and head coach not to put a big emphasis on it and provide that to them all the time. Really think that right after a workout is a time that they need to get it in. 15 minutes, I give them the time limit. We're going to set a time, and I say, all right, you got 15 minutes while I'm trying to, get them dressed and on the second period or third period or fourth period. Hey, get this in you before while you're walking to class. And so I really, really think that's a big deal. Some things my athletes constantly hear me say, and I can't emphasize how much I talk about this stuff. And I think that's important, just like I was a defensive coordinator, just like it was important for me to always talk about turnovers and always talk about eye discipline and always, that's all I ever talked about. But they heard it all the time, and they understood it, and they got it. They said, that's what coach puts the emphasis on. And that goes back to your relationship. Do they trust you? But, that's on the coach. If they do trust you, whatever you're talking about, they need, they're going to know about, and so they constantly in that room hear me talk about these couple of things. And so I think everybody puts a big deal on protein. I think protein is a big deal, but man, it's only about 15% of our daily value. And that's where I think it needs to be a bigger emphasis on carbs. I think carbs need to be a bigger deal to us coaches. So my kids hear me talk about carbs all the time. different things that they hear. I'm going to give them a sheet, Coach, and I'm just going to come out of this real quick.
Yeah.
And kind of go into something that I give my kids, if it'll work. Let me try one more time, Coach.
Yeah, go ahead. Be good.
All right. So this is something that we're going to give our kids at the start of almost every, program. Just the process is what our head coach I call it, but they make a big deal of it and make fun, all this. It's going to talk about everything we do within the weight room. Okay. But I'm going to kind of skip down. Anybody who wants access to this, you can reach out on Twitter or my, or my email. Feel free. I'll give you any. I took a whole lot of this from a whole lot of people, okay, and kind of made it my own. So it's not anything that I won't share, okay. And so I put a big emphasis on nutrition. There's the truck, analogy. Some things that I give them the opportunity. Hey, maybe you like yogurt, maybe you like skim milk, bananas, whatever you like. Get it in your body, okay. And so right here is where I talk about, recipe for success. 60% of it's proper nutrition. Really want them to take big takeaways. There's where I talk about the big takeaways: carbs, animal sources, at least 8 hours of sleep. I give the parents, an opportunity, man. This is what is high on carbs. This is what isn't so high on carbs. Some top nutrition choices. We're going to talk about hydration. We can make a whole nother PowerPoint and slide about hydration. I won't get into that. Really, really important, though, to hydrate your body. And then I just try to give, my parents a shopping list of things that I really think is important. My rule of thumb is the fresher is the better. If you can lay it out there on the counter and 2 days, in 3 hours, it's not going to be good. That's good. If you got a steak and you lay it out there and in 6 hours, it's going to be going bad. Okay. And so, if you got, anything, but if you lay a oatmeal cream pie out there, it'll be good a week from now, and so that's kind of what I tell them is man, make it fresh, have it good for your body, put a big emphasis on this. And so this is just kind of what we give our parents and our kids. I challenge them at the start to really look at it and read it and understand it. Okay. And that's just kind of our strength guide of what we have. I'm going to come back here. Okay, so obviously at least 8 hours of sleep. I always talk to them. I try to be as upfront and honest with them. I know gaming's a big deal. I know talking to girls is a big deal, but winning's a big deal for us. And that's what I put a big emphasis on is I agree, man. Hey, play your games. If you get done with your homework and that's what you want to do it. Okay, but understand that what our goal is 8 hours at least, and that's going to help us win, and that's a lot more important than winning that Fortnite game. Okay, and so I talk about that. I don't hide it. We're going to talk about that all the time. So, Coach, that's what I got today. Anybody, here's my contact information. If they want to reach out, get that strength guide, they're more than welcome. They want to get this PowerPoint, they're more than welcome. They want to ask some questions. You can text me, call me, email me. Follow me on Twitter, whatever you want to do.
That's awesome, Coach. That was good stuff. It's obvious why you guys have made the strides. People that aren't familiar with that area, I can verify that North Forsyth High School, especially the football team, was at one level, and over the last 4 or 5 years, they've been at another level. And so there's no way you can do that without having a successful strength program. So I heard good things about you. I didn't know you personally, but I had heard good things about you, and it was obvious why that is. You guys are doing some really good things, and I think the focus away from the exact max lift, on to just how many things they can do over and over again. It's so hard to do because your ego wants to jump in on that one, but that really is what's kind of separating what I see looking from the outside. Some of the good programs from some of the other ones, and staying with it, because you're going to have issues come up, Coach. and you keep this in mind too. Things are going to come up that derail you from what you're trying to get done, including, what we got going on now. And who can maintain that same philosophy and that same attitude, even when it's not going well, even when you got to revamp it, or even when whatever it is. So, my suggestion to anybody is to take that stuff and run with it, and really have a philosophy and be passionate about it, which it was really obvious you were. So that was awesome, Coach. I would love to tell you I had some questions, but I thought it was pretty thorough and pretty explained. I love the squat progression. I will ask you this: at what point do you move one from the other? Like, you got a group of 8th graders coming in there, or maybe they're 6th or whatever, but let's say they're to the 8th or the 9th now. And they're all different levels of ability in squatting. Are they doing different things, or do you progress them from this month to this month? We're going to move from goblet squat into this, or does that make sense what I'm asking you?
Sure. Yeah.
How do
So
you move them from one squat progression to the next?
yeah, I'm really, really fortunate to have some awesome coaches in there with me every day, whether it be before school, first period, second period. I mean, before school, I have Cecil Flo, who's a Hall of Fame coach from Parkview, 5 times, 6 times, whatever it is. I don't want to
He's won a
short him,
bunch
but
of them.
yeah, a ton of state championships. Been around it a long time. I have him. I got Brian Damron, who is awesome, has taught me a ton. Was a head coach for a long time. He's a weight room guy. I got Todd Faulkner in there, who was the weight room guy over at Cherokee Creekview a couple years ago. He's now our wide receivers coach. And then, I got all of our coaches in there. That's just to name a few. I don't want to short anyone, but man, I'm really fortunate to have those guys. And so we're able to split them up a little bit. We probably don't do a good a job of it as we should, and I'm the first one to admit it. I'm going to err on the side of precaution. If I feel like, man, we're not where we need to be, we're going to stay in a progression longer. If I feel like, man, maybe we got 5 kids out of 40 who's not ready, but the rest are, we're going to move those 35 on, and I'm going to assign those other 5 kids to somebody. And those kids aren't going to feel left out. We're not going to say, hey, this group, you're going to do goblet squat. I don't believe in that. Kids get embarrassed. That's when they don't want to come back. And but we are going to say, I am going to have some coaches before the lift. They're going to know. They're going to know the kids. They're going to know, hey, when we move on to landmine squat, I want this group to do goblets, and we may manipulate some kids, say, hey, we don't have enough, just to make them feel like it, feel good about themselves, but still doing what we need them to do. And I say that not in a bad way, but just not to. I never want to embarrass a kid in a room, and I just can't. I can't live with myself doing that, and so I'm going to figure out a way to keep them in goblet squats, and while the whole rest of the group's moving on.
Right.
Every situation is different. I've probably done a bad job in the past of moving a kid too fast, because whether I don't have the accessibility to coaches, which I do now, or whatever the reason may be, if I'm in there by myself, it can be a lot tougher. I probably every coach, I'm going to side on the precaution side of it and stay in the previous progression. So if 5 kids aren't getting it right, we're probably going to do that goblet a couple more times. And I'll just say, man, goblet squats are great. You can get a lot of good stuff done. I'll challenge the other ones. Hey, let's add a little more load to it. Maybe last week we did 45s. Maybe this week we're going to do 55. I'll challenge the other side of the room while we're still working on the technique from the other kids.
Absolutely. Coach, that's some great stuff. I appreciate you joining me. That was a good hour there. And, we look forward to keeping up with you and getting up with you on something else in the future. So thanks a lot. It was great.
Yeah, Coach, it was awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.